at the end of the day, we are trying to simplify these businesses because they are extremely chaotic and unorganized. It's just, that is the problem with our industry. And that is why we're so excited, because it's all of the industry. 100% across the board. It's chaotic and extremely difficult and not efficient.
Amazon's got it, Google's got it, Apple's got it, Big Five's got it, right? Now, how do we bring those big tools down to small business to accelerate at a level that just hasn't been seen before? That's what we're trying to do here. And the person that understands both leadership and technology is the one that's gonna, it's gonna be the difference between you growing this much and this much. Like that's the capabilities that we have at our fingertips right now. We've gotta exploit that. And we will.
From Sarah Systems and Billy Go, this is No BS with Billy Stevens and Landon Brewer, the unfiltered, straight-shooting podcast that dives deep into the heart of home service trades to uncover the truth about running your business. You're entering the No BS zone with Billy and Landon.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today at the No BS podcast with Billy and Landon. We are so excited to have y'all join us again this week. And man, do we have a power-packed show today. We have the most amazing guest ever, Travis Kelly, not the Kelsey that we all know, but Travis Kelly with Billy Go. And Travis runs Billy Go from an operations standpoint. He is the guy. He's VP of operations. Everything goes through this guy. But you've got to learn and hear what he has to say today. I think you're going to be mesmerized by the caliber of people that we put together to build this amazing ecosystem that we share with you guys each and every day. So how are you doing, Landon?
I'm doing great. I don't know, I might be slightly disappointed in all honesty. Like when you text me, oh, we've got this great guest, and you sound like, I just saw Travis Kelce. I'm like, I get to talk about Taylor Swift. And it's like I'm the biggest Swiftie. No, absolutely not. I don't. I am kind of confused. Like you keep bringing on some of your team members onto the show and letting the world see who they are and the great characteristics. Are you just like not afraid that everyone's going to come steal all the talent out of your business?
I guess not. I haven't even thought about it like that.
I'm starting to collect numbers, phone numbers. I mean, you got some talent on that team.
Well, you know why I'm not worried about it? Because it's not a technician that I promoted.
There you go.
There you go.
You didn't do the traditional way, huh?
Yeah, I'm actually bringing in talent outside of the industry.
Right? Well, I guess there's no better segue because, I'm sure everybody else like me wants to hear, what Travis's background is. So how long have you been in the trades? How long have you known Billy? How did you arrive on set here today?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Well, I'll start, really as just a young boy. I have an uncle. He's passed away just the last 2 years. Jerry Wilson, he was in, construction as a teenager. I got to do some work with him as a young boy. My teenage years, there's a gentleman from a really small town, 800 in population. I think on the sign, there's an arrow going up. So I think maybe it's grown from 800, but it's not quite at the 1,000 yet. So they just kept it as an arrow. But Anawan, Illinois, my graduating class was 26, and it's another construction company that Paul Specht owned. And I worked for him in my summers, between my junior and senior year of high school. And that was before I left for the Army. I spent, 24 years in the Army.
Oh, wow.
62 months in combat, fell in love with technology and just the enablers that I had. I think the catapulting moment probably in my life was 2010. I was selected to be a focused targeting force commander in Afghanistan, and I had the highest clearance, and I got to work with some really cool entities and had technology that isn't even available to us today. I was able to use, and so just understanding that and seeing that and staying connected with the government and Army Futures Command and some of these other entities, I've really got to be able to stay dialed in with technology. And then the leadership. If we talk about leadership, art, and science of business. The leadership and the science I was extremely comfortable with right out the gate. But the domain expertise it's always kind of been, so I've been in construction with my uncle as a teenager, got out of the Army. And while I was in the Army, there was times we had to occupy a land and build our own tents and build our own shelters and build our own HESCO baskets and our own security perimeters and our own, right? So I've always kind of had to build something and do something regardless of what my job was. And then as I, went to transition from the Army, my cousin, Mike Hambright, big mentor of mine, he asked me to step in with him and start Investor Machine. And, I learned so much about marketing and advertising there. In my final job in the Army, I was recruiting commander, so I knew some of it, but he took me to another level with marketing and advertising. And then his wife, Lindsay, was a systems person, and she got me really dialed in with some of the tools that were being used in small to medium sized business. In the Army, we had, some of the best tools in the world. And I mean, I remember I was in Jordan, Iraq, Syria as the chief operations officer out there. I had a Palantir representative sit next to me, three of them. They rotated 8-hour shifts. There was never going to be a problem I was going to have with the system, and they were going to fix it. And they had a Tiger team, development team that would fix things on the spot, at your request. So really just, a culmination of things. After Investor Machine, I went to Eden Equities. And so, we had an acquisitions company to buy homes. We flipped homes, we sold homes, wholesaled homes, hoteled homes, about everything you could do with a home, built new homes. We started a construction company, Trio Construction. We bought a plumbing company all in a matter of, 18 months or so. And we were able to scale all those. And, I've just learned so much. And then these last 2 years, I was primarily just in consulting, and I was, sourcing government contracts for large technology companies. And through this journey, what I really found out was I'm just an integrator through and through. I understand enough business context, regardless of what domain it is. And the science is really my strong suit. And so as long as I surround myself with good people who are really good craftsmen and understand the art, they don't have to know the science at all. I don't have to know the art at all. But if I can explain it to them to understand, and they can explain it to me to understand, and we apply the right leadership to our staff and then to our technicians, we're just going to crush it. So that's really, as I was getting recruited to come to Bill, I wasn't looking for a role. I've been an entrepreneur, started 5 companies in the last 5 years, and 2 are in the Inc. 5000, right? Pretty good. It's been an awesome experience. And, my wife, I'd spent 321 days in a hotel the last 2 years. My wife was like, you need to slow down. You're out the Army now. You need to be local. And, by the grace of God, really, a recruiter reached out to me, started talking to me 2 months before I even met Billy, warmed me up, where was I at? What was I doing? Would I be interested in doing something like this? And as I learned more about Billy Go and then Ceratec, and then I started doing research on everybody that were part of the team, I felt like, wow, this is really cool. So they're not a $100 million company, but they already have a platform, and where I come from, once you're about 100 million AR, then that's when you're building your custom platform, right? Because you can't depend on vendors anymore. You have to do everything yourself. So I thought, man, it's a gutsy company. I mean, they're at what, but then when I got here, then I saw the year over year growth. The last 3 years, it's been between 25 and 66% growth year over year. That's phenomenal, right? And
especially right now.
Yeah. And through COVID too, right? So, I mean, they had great success through COVID, some of the best success I've seen. And then just speaking with the team, the first day I met Billy in person, I deliberately asked to come to the offices that they had and to meet their people. And the thing that I learned was like, oh man, all these guys have worked for Billy. When Billy moved, they moved. So then I thought, okay, this is more than just a company. It's a great opportunity to have a long lasting relationship, and good leaders carry people with them everywhere they go, right? So people aren't going to leave a job to go to another job that you started if they don't believe in you, if they don't trust you, they don't have a good rapport with you, so on and so forth. And so I think that was pretty cool, just meeting everybody and then them telling me how they knew Billy. And, oh yeah, I've been with Billy for 30 years. He went from here and then I went with him, and then he went here and I went with him. And I thought, okay, this is pretty cool to be a part of.
Well, first and foremost, holy crap. Thank you for your service. I mean, and not in a small way, in a major way for all of those years. And that's remarkable. Genuinely, thank you.
You're worth it.
Second, I apologize. You are far more interesting with a far more interesting background than Travis Kelce. So, I mean, wow. So maybe this next question then would be for Billy. Like, how do you have a recruiting arm and a recruiting machine that finds somebody like Travis? Like, I, Travis wouldn't be on my radar until today, right? Until he started working with an organization like Billy. Like, so how does that come about?
Well, first and foremost, recruiting is a very big part of the software side of the business. When you're looking for high caliber engineers, you literally have to find high caliber recruiters. And so there's a world out there that people live in as recruiters that are in the upper echelon of people, right? The type of people that we just don't have in this industry. And, not saying we have bad people in the industry. I'm talking about a whole nother level of folks that do things like Travis. I mean, his background has nothing to do with what we do, but his background is everything I felt like this company needed, right? At Billy Go. We're not talking about Sarah. He works for Billy Go, actually. So I use these same type of recruiters that I've been using for the last 5 years, recruiting, 6-figure engineers and stuff like that, to find this type of caliber of person like Travis to come in and work at Billy Go. So I'm not one that's going to go and say, look, I'm going to go find another plumbing manager to run my business. Like you said, we're already in this platform to be prepared for $100 million in revenue. Not trying to get to $100 million and then build a platform like he explained a minute ago. And so I can't do that with someone that was in a truck and got promoted. I'm just sorry. I can't build a business like that. And we've had shows about this, right? How you can't do that. And so I use the same recruiter that I use to find these, that my COO came from this recruiter. My CPO came from the recruiter at Sarah. And so then I just moved over and I said, look, I want this type of COO that I found for Sarah, I want for Billy. Go find this person for me. And boy, did she find him. This guy, the science that he brings to what we do here at Billy Go, and then we use this information. I don't think a lot of people understand what Billy Go does. Everybody, maybe in the local Dallas-Fort Worth market, goes, it's just another competitor, blah, blah, blah. No, we're not. We share what we do. We build systems and we build processes that make these companies thrive, that makes this company thrive and can make all companies thrive. And so what we learned in the Billy Go world, what better laboratory to give to the software world, right? And vice versa. They build stuff and we test it. We test stuff and we show them what we want built. And that's the whole idea behind the Billy Go Sarah arrangement. And so when I entered,
that's interesting, because if you think about it, like I would always tell people, like this would come up, especially if you're talking with investment bankers or people that are in the private equity and they want to know more about the industry. And they say, well, tell us about your competitors. It's a very broad landscape and, it's very mom and pop, blah, 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 blah. It's traditionally unsophisticated business. And I would say, well, competitors. If you're looking at a historical sense, my competitor might be some guy that's operating in his garage down the street, one man show that's putting stuff in for cheap and talking to the neighbors, or it could be a $200 million, whatever, private equity backed organization over here. I don't look at competition as much of a competition. In our industry, I find it's more like sports, right? Where I don't choose your sport, baseball, for example, like maybe, at Billy Go, you might be the equivalent to the New York Yankees, or who's in we'll call it the Los Angeles Dodgers, since you're such a big fan of California, right? You might be the Los Angeles Dodgers headed to the World Series, right? Or you could be, I don't even know. I know the Cardinals had the crappiest year in history. So maybe you're the Cardinals, or most likely what you are in our space is like, you're probably single A, double A, college, high school level sports team. That's your competitor right there. It's not the professionals in a professional league. And so we have this universe. These companies are so vastly different, and you wouldn't know it if you were just playing what how customers used to find you in yellow page roulette. Everybody's the same company in there. They're so different. I mean, absolutely different. I don't know if Travis has seen this yet, but if you've seen any other organization in our space, but our businesses are data-based organizations, they're systems, operations, sales-focused organizations that happen to do plumbing, happen to do electrical, happen to do HVAC. There's a trade component to it, but we don't run it based on the trade. 95% run it based on trade knowledge. 5% or less run it the way that we do, with trade as the secondary component of what we do.
Right.
And that's why there's so many stuck at $2 and $3 million a year, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question for Travis. So since you've been here and you've dived in to like getting to know everyone that works here and then our processes and stuff. One of the things, before I get into the questions, one of the things I learned about Travis is I think we met a second time on like a Friday or something, and then we gave him. He accepted the role, and by Monday, he probably knew as much about the software that everyone else did by the end of the weekend. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, this is the guy for sure, right? And so, what is the first thing that you dive into when you came in here? Like, what was it that you just wanted to get your arms around first? Tell me what you were thinking.
Yeah. So everything begins and ends with the P&L. So I've coming from an equities background, I created a tool, was a part of creating a tool called Today's Valuation, today'sval.com, you can check it out. And so I was given a lifetime founder subscription to it. You connect to the P&L. It's easy to find financial leaks. Who's responsible for those financial leaks? Which department? And then from the department down to the person. And then from there, back up, right? So if you think about when I came, right, the first thing I wanted was a P&L and connect that immediately. And I wanted to then do cross-functional KPIs and OKRs against each department. And then I wanted to go down to each person. And then I started building the scorecard to each person and tying it to revenue metrics. And as I got that, I got to see the science. Okay, so what science are we using in this business model to apply how we're going to generate future success? As I went through that, then then it was going through that process. Now the P&L is the easy part. Going to Sarah, then I'm looking for what's the unified data reference architecture to the system. The first place I went to is the first tab. So Sarah was built properly, right? The first tab is called what? Reports. Well, reports are data sets. So of these reports within these data sets, how are they linked? What's calculated against these things? What visual representations are being built on the front end dashboard that need to be seen by the technicians, that need to be seen by the managers, that need to be seen by the customer service representatives? And then how are these departments broken down? What's the layers to each of these departments? So when I looked at, technicians versus installers versus hydrostatic, and how we separated the layout against capacity, and how those capacity tied into how many appointments we need to schedule based off capacity, time of job, and driving for the dollars, right? Making sure that we're going to the job that's going to make us the most money. So it's just peeling that onion from the top to the bottom and then the bottom to the top, and understanding where the data sources are that correlates all that information. And as we started doing our daily huddles, Eddie Wilson, I'll give a shout out to you. So, when I first left the Army, he's a big mentor of mine. He sold 76 companies, 1.27 billion in 2019. And he showed me the Empire system. I started with our brick meeting, our daily meeting, no longer than 15 minutes, automated scorecards, bring your numbers to the table, make sure your people know what it is that they're doing, make sure they know what our goals are, make sure we know where we stand, make sure they know why these numbers are what they are, and then help them get beyond any obstacles that they may see or don't see. And then just try to make things easy for them. I remember when I first got here, there was some tag issues with CallRail. CallRail application is monitored by activities, not by categories. So when I first got here, our team was tagging everything. They were probably spending an additional hour and a half a day tagging things. That doesn't exist no more. That was like, okay, it's a quick win. They'll never tag anything the rest of the time I'm here. I can create an AI model that can pick all this data up and aggregate it and just create some variables in my calculations. And then what happened with that? I did that. Now the live call answer rate went from 77 to 82% the first week. We've been hanging around 90%, and I've just been here for 2 months. So I think just taking things off their plate that just isn't necessary because we don't understand. And a lot of things we want to control everything and want to see everything. But what's the business value in the task that we're doing? And if it's not creating value, get rid of it, automate it. You got to. And if you can't automate it, is there a better way? And the teammates, I mean, it's been easy, right? But you got a great team. So I went to Dottie. Man, Dottie had like 5 things for me to work on. I went to Jeff. Jeff's got 3 things. Adam's got 2 things, right? So they all knew, like, these are the things. I just don't have the bandwidth to get to it right now. I know it's possible. Can you just get this data and get me this information? I just need to be able to make decisions faster. So then I just started prioritizing, what decisions needed to be made first based off the inputs that I got. And then asking, I went to Adam and Jeff a lot. You were on vacation when I first got here, and just telling Adam and Jeff, like, okay, here's like 10 things you guys have given me. I think these things will add the greatest value. Do you guys agree with this? And then what is it that you want me to do first? And then I would come back and say, okay, this thing, I don't know if I do this thing because it's going to cost this much. And it was interesting. I remember, I think Adam, no, it was Jeff. So Jeff said, I want to be able to do this. And he's like, Travis, you haven't told me that you can't do anything. And I'm like, well, the data's there. Like, I just got to get it and manipulate it and transform it and create a visualization of whatever it is you want. It's not, Sarah, it's open, so I can pull it. I don't know what, I can either download it. It's already filtered for me, so it's easy. I can just turn it into a visual representation, or I can just pull it via APIs and throw it into Power BI and give you a different visual that's maybe not in Sarah currently, but the data's there. And the most important thing is the data. That's the functional requirements. You have to have a good data dictionary, unified data reference. And if you have those things, there's nothing you can't do with the data. So then it was just coming back to Jeff and Adam and saying, okay, yeah, sure, I can do this. I can do anything that you guys are asking, but this might cost X. Is that worth the cost? And I think this thing isn't. I think this thing is. I think this thing, honestly, we don't even have to do it. I can create variables through array formulas that can give me this answer without actually doing the full thing. So I can eliminate that cost completely. And it might be like 97% accurate versus 99 because there's no 100%, right? So that's really how I just approach everything. And then that's going back to leadership, art, and science. So, I'm definitely not a plumbing and HVAC artist. Like, if you ask me to go put in a toilet, or, how do I install this, or, a test for hydrostatic, I don't know any of that stuff. But if you explain it to me and you tell me things that I can do to make your life easier, I can do that. So that's really what I focus on. Is just, you explain the science, you explain the art, I'll bring the science to the table, and then let's just be good servant leaders to one another and make sure we're communicating effectively. We both understand each other. We know what our priorities are. And then it's just creating a list, putting it in order, validating what you have to do and executing it. And it's an acronym called LOVE. Ed Whitall, you taught me that. But LOVE operations, list, order, validate, execute.
It's awesome.
That's all it comes down to.
So for all of you that are trying to follow along here, the layman way of saying everything that he said is we are cataloging and preparing this stuff to where it's just basically will be a push of a button for you to use. Everything that we're building here, it's just literally just, oh, here it is, plug it in and go. Right. And so we're doing all the science, and then we'll allow you to do, what you want to do with this new science that we're creating.
Yeah, let's elaborate on that
Yeah.
one. So we're not doing business the old way, right? If you're not accounting for speech recognition, natural language processing, cognitive computing, knowledge graphs, swarm intelligence, all these things, if you're not accounting for those types of things, generative AI is coming. And the day of scrolling your screen, like I'm going to tell AI I want a plane ride to Connecticut, and I'm willing to pay private up to $5,000, and I need it between 10 and 12 a.m. Book it. I'm not going to scroll through my phone and look for options and select if I want first class or if I want, sit here, I'm not doing any of this. Those are the things that are coming. And so how do you eliminate the screen? And Billy, and I don't even know if you remember this. I don't know if I told you this. The first time we met, you gave me a scenario of basically you were wanting me to tell you how I would make sure that I had the right people at the right place with the right expertise, with the right amount of time to solve a particular problem set. In the Army, they've got the same problem. It's called the sensor to shooter kill chain problem. And so the hardest thing was, if I'm in a firefight, I don't have time to look at a screen. I've got to have communication and a decision support matrix that comes to me against all warfighting functions where I can make decisions extremely fast in the highest risk environment. So when you told me that was the thing that popped in my head. Oh, okay, that's the same problem we had in the Army. How do we eliminate that? And the Army hasn't figured out. They're still fighting through it, but they've definitely come a long way. So, Army Futures Command, they're working on 2030 stuff. Was fortunate enough to just have a high clearance and be able to access a lot of this cool stuff. So I've seen a lot of these models, without getting anything classified, the models can be used in business. And truthfully, a lot of the technology, almost all the technology that comes from the Army is not from within the Army. It's from outside the Army. It's just that you have, if you have an unclassified clearance, but you have a science background, we just put you in your own environment and you build this thing, but you don't know what this thing connects to, because it might connect to a secret thing that you don't have access to, or you can't understand because we haven't cleared you to have that access. And so, just going through the military and seeing how those processes work and how those things stack together, I just really felt like, I'm an integrator through and through. Like, I can see the art, I can see the science, I understand the leadership. How do I bring people, processes, and systems together? But with Sarah, it's going to be, dispatcher. We talked about this, Billy. Will a dispatcher be needed in 3 years? I would argue no. I should be able to, as I'm driving, hey, what's the next house I got to go to? What are the tasks that I'm responsible for at that house? What's the average ticket anticipated for that job? What's my profit margin going to be on that job? Right? Like, we're so transparent with our data. It's all there. We should be able to prompt it and get a response. And so there's going to be some huge change. And we're thinking about all these things as we build. We have to think with the future. We can't just solve the current problem set, just keep putting out fires. Life won't get any better for anybody if we do it that way.
I agree with that 100%. I think if you're a dispatcher listening to this, you better be getting cross-trained right about now.
Me and Billy talked about that too. I think you got to level up.
You reposition.
Yeah, you got to level up, right? So, and we don't have the desire for anybody to only serve as a dispatcher anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest with ourselves, right? And so, yeah, I mean, the swarm intelligence, if you guys are listening, but, with AI, do some research on swarm intelligence. I mean, it's decentralized authority and decision-making and being able to pull that at the highest level. It's already out there. You've just got to know how to use it, and how do I bring all that data together and create the proper variables. And that's just being really good at math and science.
Yeah.
But these things exist. Yeah. Amazon's got it. Google's got it. Apple's got it. Big Five's got it. Right. Now, how do we bring those big tools down to small business to accelerate at a level that just hasn't been seen before? That's what we're trying to do here with
yeah, you're talking like leaps and bounds, like historically, just because of historical lack of management skill set in a business, kind of like your dispatcher is really, the prime determination of whether the business is going to be successful or not. Are they getting the right person there? Have they set the call up for success? Did they do, that function of the job that normally a manager would be doing or somebody would be overseeing? And so like dispatchers kind of become the de facto GMs in the absence of good management, and they're driving the business. And here you say, and I agree that with the technology, that position could be rendered insignificant in a few years. Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
What changes are on the way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with expert systems, I mean, the knowledge reasoning and deep learning is just, it's at another level. I mean, we've never seen nothing like it. I'll never forget, and it was Lieutenant General Kaufman that said this, is that, technology and leadership are at the largest scale we've ever seen, but they only meet at a solid point. And the person that understands both leadership and technology is the one that's gonna, it's gonna be the difference between you growing this much and this much. Like that's the capabilities that we have at our fingertips right now. We've got to exploit that, and we will.
What's been the biggest, like the most surprising thing to you as you've taken on this new position in the new industry?
The biggest surprise, I think, me and Billy were talking about this around lunchtime. I've always been in an extremely chaotic environment. I was always the quick reaction force commander or the focus targeting force commander, or everything was on fire, and you put the closest fire out, and then you kept certain fires at bay, and then you were always swinging for that big fire. And that's a big fire in business now is the biggest revenue. We're driving for dollars, right? So here, there's not a lot of chaos. People know what they need. People know what they want. I talked to Jeff. I'm going through a big project with Jeff right now. And, he kept telling me it's in his head. And I was like, yeah, it's in your head. You've been doing this for a long time. But I can't link my brain to your brain. And I was telling Billy, I connected him with MongoDB, a database, showed him like data dictionaries, and man, this guy's going to turn into a data scientist. I mean, just like that's how bad he wants to understand it. And that just speaks volumes of his leadership, right? So Jeff's in here earlier than anybody by far. I mean, I've been in at 4:45 a.m. I work a lot of offshore teams sometimes, and I came in at 4:45 a.m. He was already here. I thought for sure there'd be nobody here, right? That's just Jeff. And so he is a student. He wants to learn, and it's been cool working with him. Somebody's been in the industry at his age. He wants to know everything about AI and ML and data science and how do I even calculate the stuff I'm getting. And of course, going through the process with him, I'm learning so much about plumbing. There's variables that I would not have calculated if it wasn't for that collaboration with Jeff. Same thing with Adam, right?
That's fantastic.
I have a small disclaimer here. His high security clearance is also, something we need to be aware of around here.
Well, it's not valid anymore. It is after 2 years.
Well, all I'm saying is, there's someone missing. I think they heard too much, and I haven't seen them since.
Man, I mean, talk about like out of the frying pan into the fire. Is that the expression? I couldn't imagine a better suited background than having to combat people that are just firing, weapons at you constantly, to going from that to entering the chaos of the average HVAC and plumbing company. Because if you're managing one of those things that is run without a lot of these tools in a different way, that's exactly, what it feels like every day. It's like,
I think he would be more scared.
That's a good. So I will tell you, when I first left the Army, really in 2008, I started doing some real estate investing. My cousin Mike Hambright, like he took me under his wing. He taught me so much I think he's been prepping me to be an entrepreneur since 2008, really, right? So he taught me so much, but I was going to a lot of masterminds, and I wanted to hear these people talk and how they thought and how they looked at things. I really was coming in from a fresh perspective. I had only come from Department of Defense, right? It's the largest employer in the world. The Army is the largest of the Department of Defense. So I'm coming from the largest organization in the world, right? So I know that. So like, people, processes, a system, sure, I know that, but I don't know business. And so what is it that I need to learn? And I came at it with a clean slate. Like, I don't want to read the books and do what everybody else is doing. I want to go straight to the people that I know are successful. And Mike really helped me with that, like connecting me with Eddie Wilson, and introducing me, me meeting with Ed Whitall, Jepson Taylor, Sol Rashidi, some big names, some big people that's done some just incredible things. And they all had different ways of doing it, but the patterns that all of those people had were very much similar to me as a warfighter on the ground. They risked every penny they had to build something. They went through extremely hard times. They delayed the gratitude. They delayed what they were going to earn in the future, today to earn something in the future. And they made themselves about as tough as you can become. And so, what I hadn't had that, the military, it's interesting. And I'm not saying that they pay a ton. If you stay for 20 years, the retirement's really good with the annuities. And if you save on top of it, it can be really great. But they take pay out of the equation. You're getting paid. You get free money for rent. You get free money for food. All your medical bills are paid for. You get additional money if you get married. You get more money if you have kids. So then you really are just focusing on your job. So coming into business, and, especially I retired just 6 months into COVID, every company was on fire. Well, I'm non-essential. I can't even work. I can't do this. I can't do that. So I found myself jumping into a fire, but not looking at it as a fire because I had my annuities paying me. I was getting paid no matter what. I was retired already, right? And then I was able to, sell my share to a company with Investor Machine. So, and my last year in the Army, I was doing Investor Machine while I was in the military. Colonel James Zoyzak, sorry that you're just finding that out right now. But yeah, I was doing it. So, I was just, and again,
don't worry, nobody watches this.
Yeah. So that was my cousin, Mike, just pushing me to do great things. And so I had this comfort that maybe others didn't, right, while I was going through this thing, but I gained great respect for all these leaders. And again, just seeing them, they're willing to risk everything, just like I was, when I first came in the military.
That's a great, I can't think of, that's something that nobody really talks about a lot. That I wish maybe more technicians instead of even owners would listen to this, and salespeople, people just coming into the trades. The importance of delayed gratification. And we live in a world, especially today, with the people that are like coming into the workforce, it's like instant gratification, instant information, instant. And it almost kind of leads to entitlement, right? In a world of delayed gratification where you got to grind, hustle, save, like you can put yourself in a position to be successful and do whatever you want, whenever you want. And you can have choice and freedom. And I wish somebody would share that with everybody that's coming into the workforce, because that is the key to success in life, in my opinion. That we've never talked about in this show, but I was glad to hear you say that. The concept of delayed gratification. If you're a business owner and you're not familiar with delayed gratification, if you expect to go into business tomorrow and start making millions of dollars and things falling in your lap, you're an absolute buffoon, right? I mean, Billy and I have both done very well, and we have been rock bottom for many more years than we have been, being very successful. And that's the part of it. And it's like the grind, and you just got to work through it. It sucks, absolutely sucks for so long before it's good. And I don't know that a lot of people are cut out for that. And I wish they were, because life would be so much better for them.
Yeah. And I remember, I think it was the second or third interview, Billy, I had with you, is you told me, you said, hey, I want to stay lean and mean. I want to stay thinking like a startup. And you told me, think of this as like a new ramp for a 5-year startup, right? So what? This is where we already are, but I want you to think about these next 5 years and what it's going to take for us to get there. And so that was, that kind of let me know where you were too, mentally. Like, okay, so he doesn't care about success he had today. He's really thinking about the future again, which is good, and he can do that because of the team that we currently have in place.
I noticed another thing about you. You do two things, and you keep referencing two things. One, you give credit to everybody, which is, credit to your leadership. Like you said, like you've just named, 15 people that have been instrumental or helpful and that you've learned from. But you've also simultaneously talked about all the things you've learned and what you've, just by being a professional student at life, you've built these leadership and business skills by constantly being a student, and you're constantly evolving the business because you're a student. I mean, is that something that you like communicate to your employees and your team members today about the importance of being a student?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, going back to, you had said in a previous podcast, every opportunity deserves 2 to 5 minutes, and we can never be good enough to think about, we never can be good enough to stop being a student. We had a leadership meeting about 2 weeks ago, and the conversation was about invalid calls. So we're losing money on what we're calling invalid calls because we spent time there before we even said they were invalid. If we already had time there, why didn't we validate that? And so how do we change this thought process? And I mentioned to the team, hey, I actually heard on Billy and Landon's podcast. I thought it was pretty powerful. It's like every opportunity deserves 2 to 5 minutes. And don't forget that you're a student. The minute we think we got it figured out, we're in trouble, right? You said that earlier. So I think that's spot on. But yeah.
Yeah, I learned that 2 to 5 minute every opportunity because I would get rejected in the dating pool a lot. So when I would get turned down, I'd be, hey, every lead opportunity deserves at least 2 to 5 minutes.
So it had nothing to do with business.
No.
That's hilarious.
Awesome.
Yeah, but no, I think too, like my personality, psychometric indexing and all these different personality tests. In the Army, we're managed by that. Like I went to school, it said my rank, my name, and my personality type behind it. And in the fighting community, really, it comes down to like 2 personalities. It's just insane. These 2.
Well, that's interesting. So I've never heard that before. Your name, they also identify you by personality type.
Well, so yeah, you take these tests, and it's even like, when I went to the career course, it's on your name tag. Right. So wow. Everybody knows. And it's really interesting. I mean, I've seen meetings where psychological operations, right? Like they know they can help a general prepare for a meeting, and they're going to deliver the message differently based off the type of personality they're going to talk to.
Wow.
So it's extremely complex, but I always really appreciated that. And it was pretty cool. Like Marine Special Operations Command, they're the youngest of the Special Operations Command. And I remember a conversation about, there was always like, are you the smartest Ranger? Are you the strongest Ranger? Are you the smartest, the strongest? And then they said, well, if we find the most driven people and we have them trained by the smartest and strongest people, it'll be better than the culmination of both. So they completely changed their structure and how they set it up. And I was like, wow, this is powerful, right? So if you can find that driven, detail-oriented person that's kind of ambivert in between introvert and extrovert, and they're thinking, at a level field between current operations and future, or, today versus the future, and you put them around, the strongest and smartest people, you're going to have the best soldiers. And so I think it's the same in business. Wow. Is, when you look at team dynamics, I think, Billy, you've done a great job at that. We were talking definitely. I mean, I feel like I fell right into the integrator role here. He knew what he needed, right? And he's definitely an extreme visionary, and I mean extreme, maybe more extreme than me. I thought I was extreme. But then Adam and Jeff too are very good craftsmen. There's no doubt about it. They know the details of the skills, and they will even challenge the way you prep for the future based off what they already know today. And so being between Billy of wanting to take things to the highest, greatest levels, and then working with excellent craftsmen like them, it's much easier for me to be like, okay, well, this is what Billy wants to do. This is a way we can get there. And oh, by the way, we can do it the craftsman's way, right? To keep it as simple as possible.
Talk about $1 billion worth of information. I don't know what the Department of Defense paid for the psychoanalysis of the personality types, what makes for the best team members, but the driven, can you just say it one more time? Because I thought that was
like, yeah. So it was, it was always like we were labeled either the strongest or the smartest guy. And then it was, we want the strongest and the smartest guys to train the most driven people. If you put the most driven people in the same room, trained by the smartest and strongest guys, they're going to be sharp on both sides.
Wow. So, everybody like pause it, repeat that, because talk about building teams. Wow.
Yeah. And I think too, right? Like now the scary thing about those things in business is that everybody thinks they know the avatar, the personality type that they want. If you don't know the team dynamics and the personality of your team, you can easily bring the wrong person. That might have been the right person at a different scale. But in the beginning, you've got to really understand your team dynamics. And, you want differences. I can't tell you how many times, people would say, well, I want an architect, or I want a craftsman, or I want this. And I'd be like, okay, let's give your team a test. Oh, no, you don't want that guy. No, you don't want. So wait a minute. You want the same personality as yourself to do something that you hate to do, but they're going to like to do that. Interesting concept. I don't think that's the right guy. We need to look at something else. Look at this, look at that. So I think, team dynamics too plays a huge role, and just trying to build your teams and pick and choose the best people is always the hardest, right? And that's before you even exhaust any time into training. It's just how hard it is to pick the right person.
Very hard.
Wow. Yeah, it's when we were selling, I don't know if I can tell. It's a company I was involved with that starts with a G. We were selling it for the second time, and so both times they bring in, when you're making a large private equity purchase, the people that are acquiring you or investing money in you will send in like psychiatrists or experts, and they'll interview you, and they want to get a feel for strengths, weaknesses, personality types. And so we had to do this 4-week assessment as a team where we would meet. It was also kind of during COVID. So we would meet on Zoom calls like this with the entire executive team and this psychiatrist whose job was to report back and figure out what our weaknesses were and reply back to the investors. Was this a good investment? And this woman came back saying that, we were a high functioning team, but not a long-term high functioning team, because we were all too similar. We were all too driven. We were all too high D, like if you're using the DISC scale, right? And we would eat each other alive over time. And it would not be a lot. Like, we need somebody that can facilitate things, and we would just, it was amazing. It was accurate. And like, we would physically, like, we weren't in person, thank God, but there was fights and people crying on the calls. It's like, it was crazy. And the report back was like, when you get this level of people that have this much enthusiasm, they will just drive this thing to be enormously successful until it explodes. And so that's what I knew. I'm like, well, going forward, I probably can't be part of this. Time to retire.
That's a complex one. So, and what you just explained, they probably would have said that, Special Operations Command was set up that way. And I would say that's not true. And why? So, decentralization of authority. right?
Mhm.
How do I empower each person?
Yeah.
And so we're not all going to do it the same way. But if we follow a few simple rules, we respect one another, we trust one another, we don't have to fight. We know exactly what we got. We know exactly how much our budget is. What is it that we can do with it? And I need you to do your very best with what you have. And so, I think that's the difference between conventional forces and military and special operations, was that it is extremely decentralized. And the other thing I think too, my personality, I naturally want to be extremely independent. And I thought, as I get more rank or as I do this more thing, that I would gain more independence. And I think every time I got promoted, I just realized like I need to be more interdependent than ever. I'm so dependent on my 360 degrees. And so I want those driven people that are going to cry, that are going to fight, that are going to do all those things. And as long as we follow a few simple rules, just being respectful to each other, trusting each other, calling each other out when we do the wrong things, celebrating when we do the right things, I think everything will be okay. I think our society though, right? Like look at me and Billy talk about slot, like whether you work in person or you don't. I don't know the answer to that. Well, for me, I've had a lot more success working in person with people. I didn't enjoy working completely remote. Now, I started an extremely successful business remote, right? 55% net profit margin, 14 months, was over $1 million in the bank, right? First time I ever even got into business. So I was successful with it, but I was miserable. And I could have been 10 times better just interacting with those people in person versus building 2 million training videos and having 45 people sitting in a waiting room while I'm doing sales calls. And every time they raise their hand, pulling them into another room and training them on the next task and then moving over. It's extremely difficult. And doing it in person where you can train 10, 15 people in a room like we do every Tuesday and Thursday here at Billy Go, so much better, right? And then you're also given the opportunity for multiple people to talk. It wasn't just me and my way, because we know that there's never one way that's the right way. There's 100 different ways. And just as much as you think you're the teacher, you should be the student as well, right? They say a great leader is only a leader 51% of the time, right?
I like that. I hadn't heard that. That's a good one too. Look at all these gold nuggets right now.
I'm telling you what, he's loading them up.
I can see how people want you to be on site and in person, interact with you, and then, vote for Billy to be remote.
Without Billy, he's been here almost every day. Yeah, it was cool. I didn't know how it was going to be. But it's been good. He definitely, it's not because he has to. I think he enjoys being here, and we got some great things going on.
Oh yeah. I can't stay away. The volume of things getting done and how quickly we're seeing things move here at Billy Go and at Sarah at the same time. It's so energizing. Everybody's just on their tiptoes dancing around here because it's just moving at a whole nother level. And that brings up, a question about, like the technology and, kind of like what you learned about Sarah and why you think it's different or can help more or whatever. Just elaborate on that a little bit about how it really has helped Billy Go to be more than just a plumbing HVAC company, right? Can you elaborate a little bit about, people
Yeah.
for the most part, people just think,
conversation.
I'll just build software, right?
Yeah.
That's what we all think. I'll just build some software. Can you just kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
So this is a big deal going on in the software community right now, right? We're remote versus we work in person. And so a technologist does not have the business context if they've never been a plumber, if they've never actually done the job or even shadowed somebody for months and periods of time, if they don't know money, if they don't know, and I could go on and on, marketing, you look at every department, they don't know HR, they don't know recruiting, they don't know marketing, they don't know advertising, they don't know sales, they don't know CSR, they don't know dispatch, they don't know plumbing, but they're building the system because they know the science. And remote, how much time do you have remote? Right. And so it's extremely complex. And then, for the business owners or the experts, right? Even my time here, Jeff has told me, well, Travis, I just don't know how to do that thing. He knew that thing, intimately knew that thing, didn't know how to apply it scientifically. But he was able to explain it to me so well that I could do it real time. If we would try to do that in a remote session, that took days, maybe a week. We're talking hours now. Right? So the amount of time that we can save by being in person, being connected, right? It's significant. It's extremely critical. What I'm really excited about with Sarah is that we're solving problems today, but we're doing everything with the future in mind. And that's the critical piece. And it really goes back, Billy, it was I think maybe even the first interview, me, you, and Adam, when you talked about, this is the biggest thing we want to be able to do is have the right person in the right place with the right expertise that's able to meet an appointment within an hour, and we're able to determine the profitability of the job and the materials needed for the job and, all the thing. And then, the first thing we had talked about, well, the customer is not always going to give the information properly in the first time, right? Because they don't even know what they're asking for many times. But with that variable, how would you address it? And so a lot of those things, we talked about the dispatcher. If we're building our data models right, then generative AI is going to be able to create these responses and be able to tell, hey, Travis, your next property is this property. And here's the two things you have to do. And here's your profit margin that you're anticipated. And this is the amount of time that you have allocated for this task. And, Claude, your GPT bot, followed up with the person to confirm again that it was in fact these three things. And they confirmed again that it was these three things. And right. So the more that you can't do that without having, you've got to have the right data ontology. You've got to have the right learning language model. You've got to be able to create the action model from the learning language model. And all that starts at the data level. So what's awesome here is that because Sarah works on the second floor of Billy Go, then guess what? The guy walks upstairs and says, hey, this thing isn't doing the thing that I need to do. So then it's real-time improvement. Yeah. It's not like, hey, here's a problem statement that we're having, submit a service ticket, and let's go through this process. It's like, hey, go upstairs. That guy upstairs can figure it out. If you can articulate what it is, what data you need. And now that doesn't mean you can change a visualization or an object on the front end of the system, but I can get that data and do whatever I want with it. Right. And the truth is there's no system that your engineers should maintain scalability for the system. And that's what we're doing. We're not allowing like, okay, yep, here's things we can't do today. Okay, so what? We can't do these things today. Well, we can't do these things not because we don't have the architecture to do it, but because the profitability isn't there. This isn't here. This isn't here. But the minute this, and this is here, oh, just push a button, connect this thing that we've already built, and then we're going. Right. And so, you think about like, when I first came here and I got the P&L, what did we do? First thing we did was we connected it instantaneously. We already had the integration in Sarah for QuickBooks. We already had the integration for CallRail. So then it was easy for me to do all the cross-functional metrics. It was easy for me to see how to build a new customer service representative scorecard. It was easy to look at live call answer rate, or maybe some conversions that even CallRail wasn't doing. And then what's even cooler is that the way CallRail, every application has their own things that aren't working properly. And so, with CallRail, because they break it down to activities, which what does that mean? So, I called you and you missed the call. Then I called you back and it was a abandoned call. And then I called you back and the call dropped because I was in a bad service area. That's not 4 missed calls by the technician. That's 1. CallRail monitors that by activities, and they don't merge records. So that was going back to our tag conversation. Do we tag all that stuff? Heck no, it's a waste, right? We can see in just the milliseconds or the seconds of the call if it was a real opportunity or not. Why are we calculating a millisecond call against somebody? They couldn't answer a millisecond call. It definitely wasn't an opportunity. But they don't have their application built right. But when it comes into Sarah, they're not even looking at milliseconds. We can isolate the variables to give us the best representation of the truth. There's only one truth, and none of us have that truth. But with Sarah, we can isolate the data we need to get as closest to the truth as possible to make real decisions real time. And if you can do that, you always have the greatest chance to win. It's all about getting the data as fast as you can and being able to throw it against a decision support matrix and then making the decision with the right person making the decision. And so that's what excites me to be here.
It's really interesting to listen to your perspective and leadership style. I think there's a different way that, what's the best way to say this? If you're not at Billy Go, right? If you're at, maybe one of the more traditional organizations in the industry, there's a leadership component, a management and leadership component where it's like, hey, you got to be the decision maker. You're the subject matter expertise in most of the categories, and you have to teach these people and do it. Because maybe you don't have the data, or maybe you haven't built, the dream team. You built this family business, right? And to hear how you think about the business, process information, and what you're really doing is just going to other very highly skilled, capable leaders within the organization that are passionate about what they do, and just saying, how do I make your job easier? What information can I get for you to help you make better decisions? That's a different level of playing than you're going to experience at almost any other business out there. That's pretty amazing to hear.
And that's what's going to make Sarah scalable. And so it really goes back to swarm intelligence, SOCOM model forever, decentralization. And Billy told me this when I first met him. I don't even know if he was tying all stuff together, like the no boss culture. I don't want a manager. I need an individual contributor who wants to get it right, who wants to support a team. I don't want a friend. I want somebody who's going to challenge me. And so in my head, I just say, okay, he's a very decentralized leader. And then I think of just self-organization. He said, we're at a point where we need more structure. And so as I came in, it was just, hey, oh, you're great at this task. I saw you do this task. Can you do the SOP for that? Oh, but I don't want you to write out the SOP. I'm going to give you access to some software, and you're going to record a video of you doing it, and it's going to write the SOP, and it's going to put the logo on it for you by using, this particular AI GPT. And then just adapting. How do you adapt? Well, you change people's behavior by just showing them, right? We thought that something was this, but is it truly that? Did this person miss 4 calls? Oh, no, they didn't merge the records. That was 4 activities, not a missed call. It was actually only 1 missed call. But they thought there was 4, but there was 1. And then scalability.
You dig deep into the information. And here's what I've noticed in going to, building businesses, kind of being a part of all of it, and then selling, and then having, maybe people brought in, in other worlds, like we would bring in expertise in marketing and call center. And then we've had a VP of this, a VP of this, a VP of this. Now we've got all of these, executive people in charge of these functions. And then we would get reports, and then they would consolidate the reports and be like, okay, it would be like a scolding of a GM. You've got this problem, this problem, this problem. And the GM would be like, I don't have that problem. That's not the problem. Well, the data says this. Well, that's not the problem. I didn't have 5 missed calls. I got like that. That would go on constantly. It was this battle.
They're looking at one third of the.
Say, well, here's probably where you're looking at this incorrectly.
They're looking at 1/3 of the pie.
Yes.
Yes. Science. Where's the leadership and the art? Right.
Yeah.
That's a common thing. I've seen that. Those are very toxic organizations. Some guy thinks he's smarter than the other guy, and then you come to find out maybe he isn't so smart at all. So, and 2, just remember, you point a finger at somebody, 10's coming back at you.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to point, you better know beyond a reasonable doubt that you're right. And
Yeah, I mean,
if you can't back it up, you just got to be careful. There's just way too many smart people out there.
it is amazing. It is amazing to see people that, like, call center directors brought in that, managed call centers for Visa, MasterCard, or whoever, and marketing directors that were part of Google and this and that. It's like they come in and you just you have to bow out of reference to them, and then they give you this information that you just know inherently is bullshit and wrong, and it's like, okay, well, now I got to spend my time figuring out why your information is crappy instead of like actually trying to help you build what you're trying to build. and and so sounds like you got a tool in Sarah that helps you do that pretty efficiently.
Yeah, and I mean, like you see the patterns of people, how they use the system, how long they're in it. Like we can audit, just like in Google Sheets, you can look at the history. So when you have an audit.grid, I have everything backed up into another database just for pure backup, and just I want to review whatever I want to review, whenever I want to review it, however I want to review it. And so you see that you see the patterns of the people. I was only here for like 6 or 7 days before I gave a tool, MongoDB. It's a database, big parser. Ed Vital, Manish, you listen, and you guys built that thing. And so I wanted to see who already knew data. And I quickly found out, like, oh my goodness, man, we got 2 people that know data extremely well, but they don't know they know data. How do I leverage that? Right. So I'd give them tasks knowing that that's already their strengths. They already know that. They're good at that thing. Right. And so you just learn, like Jeff. I would have never, ever imagined in a billion years that Jeff would be like, filling out a column and telling me the micros and the macro. He don't even know the terminology I'm using, but he's doing it. He's giving me the data source references. He's putting the macro and micros and VBS in each cell. He's putting, he's telling me what to reference, where to reference, which is the logic for me to create the automated workflow. So he's building the architecture of a thing that he thought he didn't know, because he just told me Travis is in his head. When he wrote it into the database, guess what he just did? He just did machine learning. And now we're going to turn that into AI. And then we're going to turn that into generative AI. So, we're putting his brain in the system, and it's somebody who didn't know it just a few days. And now he knows. Now every time we talk, all the dots are connecting for him. Like, oh, wow, yeah, I get it now. Oh, really? It's just that easy. You just do that. Oh, and so I think going back to what you said, just being a student, but for me, it's just, I think a lot of Billy Go is leadership. There's no chaos here, which is, it might sound weird. It's kind of uncomfortable for me. I'm used to a lot more chaos. It's not that we don't have hard problems to solve, because we're trying to solve problems before they even exist. What are the things that we see that are going to become problems? What are the greatest innovators talking about right now? Who are the people that we need to be following because they understand things that we do not? I think those are all the things that are going to make us a differentiator in the space, particularly in this space.
Wow. I mean, Billy, I can't believe you found this guy in Craigslist. This is
yeah.
Now, is that site you're on all the time, Hinge or something?
does Craigslist even exist anymore?
I don't even know.
They got rid of the categories that I looked at, so I don't know if it still exists.
What's interesting is, so it was, can I say her name? Am I allowed to even say her name, Billy? Well, if I say her first name, nobody will know.
Okay.
So Brooke, right? Like, it was super interesting because, like I said, I wasn't looking, and my wife was wanting me to do something local, and we talked for 2 months. It wasn't something like, she's like, hey, I saw your background. What do you think about this thing? And then it'd be like, oh, that's cool, but what is that thing? Well, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I'm talking about every time I say something, there's a week in between. Oh, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But there's people involved that make a little bit of this and a little bit that better. And then it's, they already have a platform, but they're in the home service industry. But they're 2 different companies. right? And just kept giving me, and then finally she gave me the name, and then I went haywire and did like intelligence for everything. Started collecting information on Billy and trying to figure out his background and all this stuff.
You still made the choice to do it. Wow.
Well, then even Billy, I think what was interesting with Billy is he's going through the merger and acquisition, right? And so with a company, and so we have that similarity. He was extremely transparent from the beginning. Hey, this is where we stand. This is what we're going through. It wasn't hiding nothing. And so I remember telling my wife, like, sometimes guys don't tell you this for a year. I'm not even there yet. He's already told me, like, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is where I'm trying to go. This is what I'm trying to do. And I thought, like, man, it's awesome to have somebody that's genuine up front. There's no hides. There's no this. There's no that. Very transparent. Just easy to talk to. We talked 2 phone calls. We had 3 interviews. And then I've been talking to Brooke for 2 months. So it was a really smooth process. Billy didn't give any credit to himself during the interview process, but 2 on your on that careers page in the video, that really grabbed my attention. That was like a light bulb went off on my head. Was when you're talking about you want the work-life balance, but you want a high-level operator. You want an entrepreneur-minded person. You don't want a boss culture, the no boss culture. I don't think you said no boss culture, but I keep hearing that in my head. And I think of Steve Jobs, right? Like Steve Jobs said, the biggest mistake he made when he started Apple was he brought in management consultants, and those management consultants didn't do anything, and they weren't good leaders because they didn't even know what their guys were doing, but they were holding them accountable, going back to what you were saying before, Landon, right? So he's like, I want to hire guys who are the best individual contributors and the biggest complainers. I want those guys to take the management role because they're so fed up with the management not being able to teach them anymore that they're going to step up, and then they're going to have to sharpen their axe even more to make their guys better. But they are already at least a high individual contributor, so they'll be respected.
Yeah, so who was it recently? Was it like Netflix or Amazon or somebody I saw, like the CEO came out and said, you know what, the new mandate is we're cutting the number of managers that we have in half. Like we're just cutting out middle management altogether. We're just say, you know what? I know it's a risky move. We're just going to get rid of them and go right back down to the people that are actually actively working and empower them to make decisions.
Yeah, I love that.
What a concept, huh?
Yeah.
Which is very different than a lot of these historical, best practices groups in our space recommend. Many of them will say, hey, you're an air conditioning company, go out and start a plumbing division, go out and start electrical, and then go out and hire this person, hire a manager for this, hire a manager for that. Oh, you have to have somebody, you're at this size, you have a call center manager. They artificially inflate these companies, and they become all of a sudden too top heavy, and they can't outgrow, the revenues are outgrowing their cost. And so, we had a gentleman that was on a call today with us. He said, oh, I've just got this top heavy company. And we coined the phrase, oh, you got, every one of us has dealt with that at some point. You've got a Dolly Parton company. Who's the top heavy?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Would you say we're top heavy here, Travis?
Not at all. No.
I without ever setting foot in that business, I could tell you just from knowing you and the people that work for you, how they speak, very lean organization. I don't see how it could be anything but.
Well, we provide them with the tools that we don't need all this management and all these positions, right? Yeah. I mean, it's really what it is. And then they end up working smarter, not harder, right? They get a chance to work and contribute in their work, not put out fires. Yeah, everyone's a contributor. It doesn't matter what their role is. They are a contributor to success in the company. And then aligning everybody is what I always try to teach the contractors when I'm talking to them. As you all know, if you've ever seen my coaching, the first thing I do is P&L, right? Anybody that's watching this that has ever gone through any of my coaching, it's the exact same thing that he came in and did that I always do, because it really all begins and ends right there. And then from there, you learn everything you need to know and where you need to fix it, where your weak spots and all these things are at. And so at the end of the day, we are trying to simplify these businesses because they are extremely chaotic and unorganized. That is the problem with our industry. And that is why we're so excited, because it's all of the industry. 100% across the board, it's chaotic and extremely difficult and not efficient. So we're starting at the ground floor of this side of the business. That's going to be helping us move forward.
And we're making people around us better. Yeah. That's something I saw immediately. I just hit 2 months yesterday. We have vendors coming to us to be a distribution channel for products. We have, because we don't have so many internal fires, we're able to, the problems that we can't control, that would be extremely frustrating if you already have a chaotic organization. It's easy for us. We showed up today, internet wasn't working in our building. No big deal. So we didn't have any other stress. Everybody's here. We all knew what we had to do. We had our list. We had our order. We validated everything we needed to do. All of our vendors and suppliers were part of the process. We already set up to be successful today. There's no stress. Okay, cool. Hey, work from home till noon.
Do you guys have contingency plans for that?
So yeah, absolutely. Like primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. We have 4 plans for everything.
I could never imagine that you guys would have that set up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Adam showed up, right? Popped in the Verizon box. We got Spectrum, Verizon, and then one other internet provider.
Starlink.
Yeah, not Starlink. I can't recall it.
You got to go four layers down. Now you got to get Starlink next.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So there's contingency for everything, right?
That's right. So, guys just fell in. It wasn't even like, what could be stressful, especially if you weren't organized. Like if you were coming in and you weren't ready for the day, oh, you're screwed. There's not but all we had to do is just turn on the box, look at the system, continue business. So these vendors, it's easy. They're willing to do extra things for us, which is extremely beneficial to us.
Well, awesome. This has been a great time with you today. I really appreciate you coming here today. I was very excited about it. And one of the things I think that I wanted to point out about our relationship and how we work is we solve a lot of problems and create a lot of great ideas just bumping into each other in the hall. There's never really any planned meetings between us, right? We don't have a set meeting between us, right?
Yeah.
We have spontaneous, just like I wanted this show, and
I'm noticing a pattern here, Billy.
It's a pattern that works though, because that's the world we're living in, right? We're living in just, everything's right now. Everything's right now. So I created an environment where if I run into anyone in my business and they have an idea, we can talk about it right then, right there, and then get to solving the problem right now. And
we did that yesterday perfectly, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a leadership meeting scheduled for today, but we didn't do it because yesterday we had a birthday party. Before the birthday party, we're all sitting in a room. We brought up something, and all of us got engaged very quickly. And then, we're like, hey, we don't need a meeting tomorrow. Just if you can just send a list of action items that we assign to each person, and let's just go get it. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So we can, we get straight to the issues and opportunities and just try and blow it up.
Well, perfect example today was he had just popped his pizza into a microwave, right? And I just happened to walk into the break room where he was at, just by chance. I was going to go see someone else for something, and there he was. And then literally we just, from right then and there, 20 minutes went by. His pizza was cold again. But we were able to solve something and just
for that company in Houston.
Yeah. All about their issue. We solved it for them in like that spontaneous opportunity, right?
Yeah. And we made a 3-minute video and that was it.
Yeah. And it was done. And so I don't want to say that we just run around aimlessly. Not what I'm saying. But we're all thinking about how to move forward, whether it's Billy Go, whether it's Sarah, whether it's our customers, whether it's people that are going to be our customers. It's how do we move forward? How do we move forward? And so when a technician can walk in the room and he goes, "Hey, boss, what about this?" Boom. Now we have something to work with. He's telling us he's engaged. The guy sweeping the floor in a warehouse. "Hey, I created a better broom or a better way to push the broom. Let's talk about it so we can," you know what I mean? That is what we created here. It's just a laboratory. We're a walking laboratory, working laboratory, every single day. And with that mindset throughout the entire organization, it's amazing what we can accomplish here, in a little bit of time. I wanted to thank everybody for hanging around here today. It's very important that you give us a thumbs up. That's how we grow this show. If you feel like there's real value here, share this program with folks. Let's get it out there. Help us grow us. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers just on YouTube with over 50,000.
To subscribe. Get your dead grandmother to subscribe. Everybody. We're like Democratic voters. We're like the people that cheat. Just whoever you can get in your family and friends and made up people to subscribe. Let's just subscribe.
Let's just get the mail-in voters to subscribe. That would be millions.
Wow. Is that time of the year, isn't it?
Well, Travis, we really appreciate you
great.
Joining us today. This has been fantastic to share this with everyone and to show what we do here on a day-to-day basis at a little
great
plumbing HVAC company.
Nuggets. $1 billion golden nuggets, even, right? A lot of some of the recruiting. I took a lot of notes on this one. Some of the recruiting gems with the makeup of the best teams. This is good stuff.
Yeah, it's great meeting you too, Landon. Man, I really enjoy listening to your guys' podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
I really enjoy that other people enjoy listening to the podcast. But yeah, so it was. I had a phenomenal time. It was great. You literally kind of shared some war stories with us. Man, again, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're doing at Billy Go. Thank you for now contributing to an entire industry in passing along some of that knowledge. And thank you for giving us a different perspective than the average Bubba that might be trying to run one of these companies, right? Like, I'm just like trying to visualize in my head all the owners and people thinking like, oh my gosh, like putting Travis in my company, like, what would I even do with that? How could, like you're just setting a bar, a different level of standard. And I love that. That's great.
Yeah. And I'll throw it out there. Just, I'm retired military, and man, it's interesting. A lot of people's asked me like, where I find other guys like you. I told you in the career course, especially in the fighting community, we're only one or two personality types. There's a whole bunch of guys like me out there. We know people and processes and systems intimately. Right now, the data skill, that's a skill that has to be gained, and the business skill that has to be gained. But all these guys are extremely driven, and all they want to do is bring value in everything they do. And they're looking to be on a team again. I walked out of the Army. It was the weirdest thing, right? There wasn't a couple hundred guys falling in a formation, and I wasn't getting a salute, and nobody was going to give me my coffee or bring me food anymore. And nobody, I show up, I retired. That's it. It's just me and my family. There's nobody there. So so we come out of the military, we're looking for teams. We know that we can't do this by ourselves. Where can we find these other awesome people to help us? So there's a lot of Travises out there, and you can find them for sure.
Awesome. Craigslist, right?
Yeah, honestly, man, you probably know LinkedIn, right? Like that's LinkedIn portfolios. If you're in the military, like I think it's almost mandatory to have an account. Like when you go to a certain school, when you hit a certain level, like a lot of our documentation and things that we need to do was all in LinkedIn. So you have a LinkedIn account, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sarah Systems. At Sarah Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit Sera.tech today. That's Sera, SERA.tech today.